Guten Tag, bonjour, c'est un plaisir de vous parler aujourd'hui pour expliquer mes ouvrages. Hello, it's a pleasure to speak with you today and to share my work. I'm Dr. Anna Burnley from Flagler College, Tallahassee, in the US, and the title of my presentation is Pedagogical Strategies to Diminish Concepts of Language Privileging among pre-service teachers. In 2019, I also presented at the 5th Saarbrücken International Conference on Foreign Language Teaching, and I am completely thrilled to be back today. I think it's helpful for us to begin with some terminology as I'm using it today. To start, English learner is any student whose home language is anything other than English and who's learning English as an additional language, probably at school. Language privileging is providing hegemony or preference to just one language, often used as a way of maintaining power structures, marginalization, and effects of colonization. Language endangerment is the danger of losing a language through language death or language extinction. Our concern today centers on language endangerment occurring as pre-service teachers instruct English learners in a monolingual setting that privileges English. The heritage language is the language spoken in the English learner's home setting. The commonly shared language is the language most widely utilized in educational, business, and governmental settings. In the US, the commonly shared language is Standard American English. Desired language is the additional language being learned. And again, in the US, the desired language tends to be Standard American English. A pre-service teacher is a university student who is studying to become a school teacher. In the US, that would be through pre-kindergarten through 12th grade, ages 4 through 18 in the US. Language planning policy are governmental policies regarding language use within a country or a region. The statement of the problem, I became aware that educators in training at the university level in the US do not always fully realize that when they teach the commonly shared language as the desired language, the English learners are simultaneously replacing their home or heritage language with a foreign language for a significant segment of the child's day. In 2000, Lily Wong Fillmore noted this in her quote, the dilemma facing immigrant children, however, may be viewed as less a problem of learning English than a primary language loss. While virtually all children who attend American schools learn English, most of them are at risk of losing their primary languages as they do so. I did feel with my own university students that they were not always aware of the dangers of language privileging as they were teaching English. But to really understand language privileging, we have to include in it the concepts of providing and maintaining hegemony in governmental, educational, political, social, and business settings. If we consider language privileging as a construct of colonialism and marginalization, we can see, for example, that not only is English highly privileged globally, but that certain dialects or varieties of English are privileged over other varieties. In the US, indigenous languages were driven to near extinction through genocidal policies that posited English as the privileged language, as you can see here on this slide. The false, incorrect belief that English is the quote-unquote official language of the US is one that I find my students frequently express, and they are often unaware that the US is in fact a nation of many languages. So the literature review that I performed does support the idea that language endangerment is a serious problem with roots, in part, in language privileging. Because I teach pre-service educators, then I wanted to consider how university professors might use instructional strategies to address this important issue. I wanted to consider only instructional strategies that were easy to implement and practical for the task. I have attempted to synthesize my strategies with the current research that informed those strategies. In doing so, I was able to construct more than a dozen strategies to teach this concept to pre-service teachers, and today I'm sharing 7 of those strategies with you. Every strategy can be utilized either in a traditional face-to-face classroom or, pandemic or not, in an online course. So I have provided access through both routes of instructional delivery. In strategy 1, I felt it was important for monolingual native speakers of English, such as my students, to be introduced to kindergarten through 12th grade teachers who had grown up as English learners. I felt it was important for pre-service teachers to develop empathy for their future English learners and to embrace concepts of plurilingualism that would create awareness of language privileging as it happens in the classroom. So videos of teachers who tell their own stories of having suffered language marginalization and language endangerment of their heritage language can provide powerful images to pre-service educators, as well as introduce them to concepts of bilingualism. In strategy 2, I thought that pre-service teachers could learn the value of plurilingualism and thereby lessen the so-called English-only thinking that some of them might follow. By recording their own learning throughout the semester, pre-service teachers can note benefits of plurilingualism that are important to them, and then can create an infographic, such as the one that you see on this slide, which is from the Office of English Language Acquisition. At the end of the semester, pre-service teachers can then share their created infographics with the whole class, either face-to-face or online. In strategy number 3, I have been finding anecdotally that my own students tend to be monolingual in English, particularly in American English. And while they do understand the historical and cultural constructs associated with American English, they don't always transfer that knowledge to the heritage language of their own English learners. So in strategy 3, I wanted to diminish concepts of language privileging by encouraging pre-service teachers to recognize the historical and cultural values associated with heritage languages. This can be accomplished by reading current accounts, such as you see, of efforts being made throughout the pandemic by speakers of indigenous languages who want to shelter and protect their heritage languages. After exploring current stories, pre-service teachers can chart the reasons why it's important to value all languages instead of only valuing the one that they speak. In strategy 4, the focus on recognizing language planning policy requires pre-service teachers to leave the classroom after class, of course, and go into their own neighborhoods to document through photos and journaling different instances of language planning policy. Now, I did that in the town where I live, and you can see the red stop sign, which is uniform throughout the U.S., as well as the word stop written on the pavement to try to prevent people from driving into the lake. Now, this is helpful if you read English, but if you don't read English, then this language policy is a fail for you. And additional readings in the class can further the pre-service teacher's understandings of the limitations of language planning policy and the connections that these policies often have to colonialism and marginalization. As an additional example, the photo on the left is one that I have that I took here where I live, and stores were required to provide pathways during the pandemic to help lower the infection rate. And sometimes that language policy just didn't work at all, as you can see on the left. On the right, in 2019, I took this photo in Germany, and I found that it was quite helpful because this policy of using multiple languages allowed people who wanted to drink wine to know where to buy it. In strategy 5, pre-service teachers are often already familiar with education taxonomies, such as Bloom's taxonomy. So I wanted to connect language endangerment taxonomies to that familiar concept of education taxonomies to help support pre-service teachers in recognizing that both kinds of taxonomies have a role in preserving the English language learners' heritage language. The side-by-side visual of the two kinds of taxonomies followed by lecture, as you see here, can encourage pre-service teachers to recognize that language privileging can lead to language endangerment rather than to desired plurilingualism. In strategy 6, it was important to me to include privileging as it relates to written word. Now, what I have found anecdotally is that pre-service teachers may be unaware that the majority of the world's languages exist without a written component. Language privileging encourages the deficit belief that such oral tradition languages are somehow lacking since they do not rely upon a written component for expression. By using local school data, which is online, pre-service teachers can record which languages in area schools are spoken and used as heritage languages, then research to determine which of those languages are oral tradition languages, further research to find out whether or not there is a written component for that language, and then share their observations of how the written language is privileged over the spoken language in the culture where they reside. As we noted earlier in this presentation, standard American English is heavily privileged here, and I think that intentionally noticing on the part of pre-service teachers allows them the ability to really see how one language is not representative of the vast diversity of languages spoken in this country or globally. In the final strategy that we're sharing today, I wanted to specifically focus with my own learners and perhaps to share this on the issue of language extinction, which is a furthering of the process of language privileging. In this final strategy, visual images, such as the video noted, can provide pre-service teachers with ethnographic information about language endangerment and language death, and can allow them to view children and adults who have experienced marginalization as a result of language privileging. These very real stories can be followed by debriefing and lecture or discussion. So let's think about the findings. What I'm finding and what I've included in my article is that language endangerment or extinction due to language privileging is not a phenomenon that is heavily discussed in the current literature, specifically as it relates to the teaching of pre-service teachers. We need much more research to be conducted to understand this. While the research is in progress, we also need to employ effective practical instructional strategies, such as those that I have provided, and pre-service teachers are in a unique position to really use these. My works cited are from the entire article, and I would like to thank you for attending my presentation today.